Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name's Beth, and if you're new, welcome. Today I'm making a baby quilt, and I began with just 8 inches, an 8-inch strip of a fun piece of fabric. It was a very small, narrow piece, but I was able to get a quilt made using some scraps. Let's get started. Here is that little 8-inch piece of fabric. It's not quite the width of the fabric. Some of it had been cut off at the top or the bottom, and I was able to harvest 8 little pictures from this little piece of fabric to start my quilt top. I dug around in my fabric stash and I pulled out these fabrics that I thought coordinated with the pictures. I'm making this for a new baby who has not appeared, and the mom and dad don't know if it's a boy or a girl. So I was hoping that this fabric would be for a boy or a girl. It's just a fun fabric with lots of greens, oranges, yellows. And what I did first was I cut those little pictures, trying to leave the frame and at least a 1/4 inch around those printed frames around the picture. As you can see, some of these frames are not complete. Some of the pictures have been cut off in that 8-inch strip. So I lost some of the cute little pictures here. Some of them are totally framed, like the ladybug, but these hedgehogs and the raccoon and the trees, they all lost some of that outside border. And I didn't think that would make a difference, so I did start adding some fabric all the way around these cute little pictures, and I started with a very light fabric, sort of a white print with polka dot, and I chose a few of these fabrics that I could frame around my pictures. And since this raccoon here was a rectangle shape, I wanted to make it more square, so the top and the bottom strips are larger than the side strips, and the side strips I'm cutting 1.5 inches, and the top and the bottom I think were 2.5-inch strips. So here's my first block. I'm not doing any measuring, I'm just straightening things up, and after I make my blocks, I will be getting them all together, and I'll show you how I do that in just a couple minutes. And you can see on the left, the selvage is kind of showing, so I did have to get my seam a little closer to that green frame on the print and to get rid of the little dots from the salvage. I imagined all of my squares having that white sort of print first and then a darker strip. So these are basically log cabin blocks. They are very improvisational. I am not measuring a lot. I'm just cutting strips from anywhere from 1.5 inches to 3 inches and adding them all around these little pictures. This little ladybug square is so cute. I'm going to be adding that white print first and then the polka dots on the outside. This is my third block and the second block that did not have a complete frame. So you see that little yellow strip around the hedgehogs. I decided after a couple of these blocks that I did not like the fact that it was missing one side of that yellow frame. So in just a minute, I'm going to go back and fix this hedgehog piece and also that first block that I made, and make sure that these little pictures are totally framed. So here's one of the tree blocks, and I measured that orange frame on the fabric and it's a ½ inch. So I cut a strip that is 1 inch because I know I'll be losing a ½ inch on both sides for the seam. A 1/4 inch times 2 is a half. So I'm going to add a 1 inch strip to the right side with a similar color. So it's not exactly the same orange, but it's very close. And you know, scrappy quilts work when you get fabrics that are close in color and value. And so this worked out great for this orange one. So after I did this tree block with the orange strips, I went back and fixed both the first block I made with the raccoon and the second one with the yellow framed with the hedgehog. This is how it's looking so far. I've completed some of the blocks with the light strips and the dark strips. The dark strips are 1½ inches, and I'm going to keep going until all 8 blocks have a light strip and a dark 1½ inch strip. And again, all of those light strips are different sizes. I just tried to eyeball and I kind of used what I had. I'm going to square things up later, so it's not a problem that things don't match up right now. All of my blocks are now on the design wall, and I just have one more to make. I thought I might go ahead without that 9th block, but I'm going to make a little block to fit in with this quilt. I took a little piece of yellow fabric, 3.5 inches square, and I'm going to make a log cabin very similar to the fun animal blocks that I have in the quilt so far, and this will fill in that little gap that I needed to fill to make this quilt feel just a little more balanced. For that light fabric around this block, I used some of my leftover strips. So this is a scrappy version of a log cabin using all of my leftover fabric, and I think it came out really cute. Now that I have all of my blocks up on my design wall, I'm going to try to figure out how to puzzle these blocks together. Like I said, I'm going to put them in columns first. So I'll add some white strips between and on the sides to get these columns to be the same width. Thought I would be adding white strips between my columns, but when I put them right up next to each other, I thought it looked really nice just the way they are. So after getting my 3 columns sewn together, I will be adding a border all the way around. And you can see that center column is a little short, so I'll just need to add a strip there at the bottom. And it looks like I'll need to add a strip on the top of this column on the right. I'll add a white strip about 2 inches, and when I have all my columns ready, I'll sew them together and make it all even on the top and the bottom. Here's my quilt top all together so far, and it is really fun to puzzle these pieces together. As long as you square up your squares and straighten your edges, it really is a fun way to make a quilt. So I'm going to add some borders around. Since this quilt is a little bit wider than it is tall, I'm going to add 2-inch strips on the sides and 4-inch strips on the top and the bottom to make it just a little more square than it is. Before I added the borders here, it measured 38 by 44. And here is the quilt top complete. This was a really fun quilt top to put together. Now I need to make a quilt sandwich and get this quilted for the new baby. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.